Oh,
Hello.
okay, you guys. So
No, no,
thank
lo
you
ves
so much
bien.
for hopping on. So the reason I thought this was perfect for us to, did you guys get it? Good. Yay. For us to read this book was because I think everyone here may know that back in 2016 is the first time we were exposed to Danny. But I wanted to go to Danny in 2015, like I think it was like in July, she has an event. And I had told Jorge, I want to go to this woman. I actually had never heard much of her. I remember Audrey saying, you should go. A lot of the Team Eagle people had gone to like a prior event. And then I happened to listen to a couple of her things, and then I hopped online and I was like, oh, I want to go to this event. And it was actually in January of 2016 our first event that we went live, that we paid, that it wasn't, you know, Beachbody related. But in 2015 when I wanted to go, I had told Jorge, you know, watch this, because she has that, like, I don't know, 2-minute clip or whatever. And Jorge watched it and he was like, oh no, we don't need that. We're not going to that. I was like, all right. So then I started feeding. The first book I fed Jorge was The Energy Bus. And it was because he was driving a lot. And, you know, seriously, Jorge's attitude back in the day at work was not good. Let's just keep it at that. And so I started listening to the book first. And then he was driving so much that I was like, oh, you know, Jorge, how long are you driving today? And he would be like, oh, you know, I'm driving this amount of time. And I was like, yo, you should read this book. You should listen to this book. And then I remember him calling me and be like, yo, this book is so good. I think he literally like listened to that book in like 2 days, I think, if not like 1 day, because he drove so much. Right. So I started feeding him PD that way. And then finally, right before, you know, the year ended, I was like, I was telling him, yo, Danny's going to be in Orlando in January in 2016. I said, we should go, maybe take Matias to, you know, to Disney.
I'm not going to lie. It was for Disney.
So he was like, all right, you know, let's sign up and, you know, we'll go to Disney. So we took my mom and his mom and we made it a trip. Right. And honestly, I'm so happy that you guys were able to attend virtually, but, you know, being there for the first time, not knowing much of what to expect, because she gives you a little bit of everything. She gives you life, you know, she gives you finances, she gives you business, she gives you marriage, she gives you everything, relationships, right? And so when I was there the first day, we were hooked. Jorge was like, oh, I'm so happy that we came, you know? And so I guess what was helpful was that, you know, just like you guys went into this not knowing what to expect, but you went into this with an open heart, with an open mind, right? And then you got so much out of it because of that. So one of the things that I recall feeling there was like, because I had that mentality of, you know, I came here to learn. I also left with the belief that because she teaches from the Bible, that everything she was teaching was true, right? And I feel like some people, and she even says it, you know, she even said it in this event, that there's people that come into this event and because she's a woman of faith, because she's teaching from the Bible, they leave and they feel like they're not teachable. They leave without, you know, without the belief that she had something good to teach them, and they can, you know, take something and make something out of it. So I learned the law of that was the first time actually that I learned the law of promotion, which comes from the Bible, which is the parable of the talents, right? And we started to practice that since then. Since 2016, we started to practice, which is, you know, be faithful with the little. And if you're faithful with the little, God will bless you with much more. And one of the things we apply that to was to giving, right? And and I can, and it's not just giving, it's not just money, it's, you know, being faithful with your time. When I feel like I'm not being faithful with my time, I feel like I have no time. When you are faithful with, you know, with your, with people, with relationships, right? God will bless you with more, like he'll bring, you know, even more influential people into your life, you know, loving people into your life, people that believe in you, that love you, etc. So we've been very faithful with the law of promotion. And so I'm just, you know, excited that the way she ended it was with how to fight debt. Because one of the things that even before Danny, so Danny started on Friday, on Wednesday, it's weird, but I always feel like God speaks to me in the shower. Like I just get these, and maybe it's because you're thinking in there, right? Because it's silent. It's always noisy in my house, unless it's nighttime. And I feel like I don't get to think then, because I literally put my head on the bed and I'm out.
That's actually me watching you. No, I'm just kidding.
So anyway, so then, you know, so on Wednesday I got out of the shower and I was like, babe, I'm like, what do you think about, right? And then, so I've been wanting, so you guys know Team Advent means, you know, the second coming of Jesus Christ, but it also means the full transformation of an individual. And that means, for me, being healthy is not just about being physical, right? Physically healthy. It means emotionally healthy, mentally healthy, spiritual healthy, financial healthy, right? So I've been wanting to incorporate ways where we can all be able to transform our lives that way. So which is why, you know, when Jessica from one of the coaches from Beachbody and Dara, her name is Lara, right? Wait, Abigail, is it Dara or Lara? I can't hear you.
It's Dara.
Dara. When they created that praying group, I was like, this is perfect, because that touches on our spiritual growth, right? And that's why we do our devotionals. That's why, you know, when I find a good devotional, I share it with you guys. That's why we have our weekly calls, so that we can continue to grow, right? Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that I'm going to present tomorrow to the team, to the challengers, is for us to do the Ultimate Portion Fix program together, one video each day starting in November, because many of them have it and they have never touched it. And so there's no growth coming from nutrition if you're not exposed to it, right? But if we hold them accountable to do it, then they'll do it. Then the other thing I told Jorge I wanted to do was the meditation program. It's only 10 minutes every single day. And you guys being psychotherapists, you know the importance, right, of mental health. And so I presented it to the Spanish girls yesterday, to the Spanish speaking girls yesterday, and they were all for it, and you know, and they loved the idea. And I think it's just being, you know, fit all around. And so, you know, when Danny finished it off the way she did, I was like, oh, we can totally introduce them to, you know, to her husband's teaching, which is the True Wealth Formula. And I'm not going to bore you, because Jorge is going to basically tell you what it is that you're going to get out of the book. He's not going to do a deep dive, because that's what we're going to do every Wednesday when we read. And it doesn't have to be, you know, something that is going to consume you, but it can be 10, 15 minutes every single day that we read, you know, to ourselves. And then we connect on Wednesdays and we give back our takeaways, right? And then we can take it from there. So you want to take it away?
Yeah. So as Gab said, you know, we jumped into Danny in 2016, and then I don't know how I got involved. Her husband basically runs her businesses. He's basically the sort of like the brains behind the business. And he has an interesting story. They both have an interesting story. You heard Danny's story. You know, I mean, she opens it up. You know, and when we were live, I mean, the first thing she said, I don't know, I wasn't here, or I didn't listen to when she opened up this Steps to Success, but, you know, she opened it up as, let me just clear the room right now. She's like, I'm a drug addict, I'm a slut. She's like, and blah, 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 blah. And she laid out her everything. about who she is. And she's like, and I'm like, huh? And, you know, she disclosed everything about herself because, you know, number one, she's like, the first thing about being able to grow is checking your ego. And so, you know, so I started, you know, trying to understand that. And you would literally, if you were live in her program, when you would go out to the bathroom or take a break or just get there, she has her people in her at the door, her ushers at the door with baskets. And literally, I mean, as corny as it sounds, the baskets was you had to put your hand in there, and you were leave your ego at the door. Leave your ego at the door. This is nowhere, you know, this, I mean, she literally breaks you down, and you basically uncover who you truly are. And so or what you're going through. And that year, I was actually going through some really frustrating times with my job, which, like I said, I had probably one of the best jobs that I consider myself ever having, that turned into the worst, what's the word I'm looking for? Not relationship, relationship. The worst,
Sorry, I wasn't thinking.
toxic relationship ever. It was a toxic relationship from a standpoint where I was just, you know, I was dealing with a lot of negativity in my profession, and I just wasn't happy. I really wasn't happy with it. And I knew I wanted to make a change, but I had the golden handcuffs, which is basically I was making a lot of money, and I'm like, where else am I going to go and make that same amount of money that I'm making, right? And there's nothing else that I really want to do. So anyway, I was dealing with that on a personal level, and it really just allowed us to uncover, you know, all the gaps that we were having in our life, you know, the gaps that we were, you know, as parents, new parents, you know, gaps in obviously my profession, what it was doing to our personal life. So things like that. So I fully emerged myself to say, I'm going to give this a really good, you know, opportunity to think, where, you know, a lot of good things came out of it for me, where it was, you know, I sort of repaired not having a relationship with my sister, who I had for many years. I didn't have a relationship with my sister for other, you know, for various reasons, that now we do have a relationship, but it was just, you know, doing a lot of the things for number one, for me, you know, letting go of things that were holding me back, as opposed to just mending the relationship. I wasn't doing it for my sister. I was doing it more for me, because I wanted to move on with my life and not carry that baggage, right? So part of that, you know, like I said, you guys sat through Danny, so you saw what she, you know, what she takes you through and how she gets you to the point of what you're feeling with now. And, you know, it was a good refresher for me, because we've been through a couple of successes, but this one was a good audit for me, where some of the things that, you know, as human beings, we go back into our daily life and start doing our same routine, where we have to get checked. We have to check ourselves, right? But, you know, like I said, Gab goes through that, and we'll discuss that. But then I met her husband, and her husband, we met a lot of good people, a lot of interesting connections through going to that, from people who, from the business side, from people who handle our, you know, finances, taxes, you know, things like that. And Hans, I kept on hearing his name. You know, he's like, oh, you know, if you ever hear Hans speaking, he doesn't speak at all her events, but occasionally he does. And he actually came out to one of our second event, I can't remember, and he started speaking, and I was laughing at him. I was just like, we were like, the way he was talking, we were like, is this guy like I was embarrassed. Like I literally was embarrassed the way he was talking, because number one, I didn't understand him. So if you ever hear him speak, it's good that you're reading the book. And like I said, I'll take one step at a time. He's not, you gotta get your mind right for him. But one of the biggest things about Hans, the number one thing, is that he's not selling anything. And that's probably the one biggest thing, that in a world today that are full of people trying to sell you a dream, a lotto ticket, you know, give me $250 and I'm gonna make you a millionaire, right? You know, the why, I'm glad that you guys have the book. And the reason why you should read the book, number one, is because he is a self-made millionaire. They're self-made millionaires. He started his first business selling Lays, because he's from Hawaii, selling Lays on the street, putting flowers together and selling them. That was his first entrepreneurial gig. And then just started building his businesses with Danny, and to where they are today. And he's self-taught, self-trained. He has a lot of mentors, but he got tired of trusting people to do things that he wasn't willing to do himself. So the number one question is, how can you trust anybody to think for you? How can you trust anybody to manage your finances or manage anything about you if you're not willing to take the time to manage them yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And we hear so many, like, for example, we hear Bernie Madoff. For those of you who've heard of Bernie Madoff, who's a, supposedly a well-known name, he took everybody for a ride. Biggest Ponzi scheme. You see a documentary with his family. I mean, he had people, the Mets owners, he had millionaires and billionaires who believed in him and thought he was legit. And that's a perfect example of people who had just either a lot of money or maybe not, but you had a lot of money and said, you know what, I don't really have the time, or I don't want to take the time to learn how to manage my own money. So I'm going to hand it over to you because you have a good name. Here you go, and make me rich, right? So they're always going to do what's usually in their interest and their best interest than what's in your interest. So the whole thing about this book, the whole idea is really thinking for yourself, learning how to think for yourself. And I've been, it's funny because I opened up the app this morning that I'm part of TWF, and he's been mentoring me since November of 2017. And I shot him a nice little message because he literally has changed my life financially, not only from a standpoint of knowing what I'm, when you're looking at the news, which I don't do, when you're reading the newspaper, which I don't do, is knowing what's true, right? I'm not a political person by any stretch at all. I probably started voting 2 years ago, or the last election. But the thing is, you need to know what he teaches you is you need to know when you're being manipulated, right? By the market, by the industry. You have so many people, and I'm just going to mention this, but this is not about politics or anything. But you hear so many people that talk bad about Trump. You hear so many people that talk bad about Biden. And it's basically just their followers manipulating people for your votes, right? And the reality is that, it's so funny. And this is not about, this is not a Trump favorite or Biden favorite. But the funny thing is that you got two millionaires, two very extremely wealthy people prying on people who do not have the understanding of how to, let's say, manage their own finances, and they're manipulated, right? So you have Biden, people attacking Trump and saying, oh, he only paid $750 worth of taxes. But if you really knew how much Biden paid in taxes, he paid probably a little bit more, the same thing. But you have to realize who we're dealing with. You got two men who are acting like kids, who are multi-millionaires, mm-hmm. and who are seeking the votes of the poor, right? That's the reality there. So this is not about pro-Trump, pro-Biden, not about that. But what Hans has taught me is to see and understand when we are being manipulated. This is the first election that I'm going into that I'm like, wow, I really see what I didn't see before. And I understand what, and it's so funny to see the various channels and what they say. CNN says this, it's all fake news. It really is fake news. And that's why I turn to Hans, because, the guy's a scholar from that sense where he teaches you to understand when you're being manipulated. So the number one thing why you should read this book is so that you know what questions to ask and what to know. Not necessarily, for example, the book is not teaching you to be a plumber. And I'm just giving you an example. Like if you wanted to fix your own kitchen or do it yourself or whatever, I don't want to be a contractor. My job is not to be a carpenter, but I want to know enough about the jobs that need to be done so that when I'm going to hire that contractor, I know what questions to ask, right? Mm-hmm. So really what it comes down to is understanding what questions you need to ask so that you understand, so that you're not taken for a ride. So I just put some bullet points here because I wanted to so just do my due diligence for all you guys on the book and what I've gotten it. But why should you read this book is, number one, you should take control of your finances. All right. What does that look like? I'll speak for myself. I'm the first person that went to college in my family, and you don't need a college degree for this whatsoever. But what college gave me, is although they gave me a degree, I needed nothing for it, what I'm doing with my profession right now, but it allowed me to meet people who have significantly a lot more money than me. And I don't consider myself having money, but I have friends who, I have a friend, one specifically, who's a multi-millionaire. He's been he works for Credit Suisse now at different banks, trades interest rates. And, you know, just learning little by little, I always had an understanding of how to use my money, or at least not to spend it, but I never knew what to do with it, right? I never knew what I should be doing with my money. And you cannot save yourself to wealth. You will not save yourself. No matter how much you save, you're not going to get there, right? You need to invest your money, number one, but you need to understand where to invest. So he kind of discusses that. Doesn't tell you. The beautiful thing about Hans is that he doesn't say you need to go and buy this or you need to go do that. Those are the people that take you for a ride. They're buying you, they're telling you to do something specifically with your money because it benefits them somehow, right? So Hans talks about, once again, he teaches you how to fish. He doesn't give you the fish, all right? So the biggest offense that he will ever get is if you ever went to Hans and said, hey, I'm about to go and do this with my money. What do you think? And then he will go right back and say, what do you think? Right? With what the lessons that you've learned from what we've talked about, what do you think? Right? So that's the number one. No, okay, foundation. So why you should read this book, I kind of discussed that, right? The foundation. Knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. That's what this book gives you, right? So it just makes you think and makes you question things. It makes you just know what's being manipulating or what's not, what's truthful or what's not. As he calls it, the FOS meter. He always has an FOS meter, which is a full of shit meter. You have to have your guard up to understand when you're being taken for a ride or for what's legit. The next part is debt. You know, being in debt is you know, it's the worst thing that can ever do for you, specifically consumer debt, which a lot of us probably know that already. But you need to understand that when you spend $1, are you truly spending that dollar, or what are you truly spending? Because if you were to invest that dollar and it could earn 5% and give you 5% within, you know, cumulative over five years, but you spent that dollar, how much money are you really spending, right? So you need to start thinking about, yeah, it's only, and I used to always say this, it's only $1, it's only $5. But when you really look at it, what is the ramifications of that money that you're spending, right? So by no stretch is he telling you to be frugal, but he's teaching you how to use your money. So live within your means is the number one thing in debt, and he explains that thoroughly. Income. The biggest thing that I hear, and I'll use my example, I use family members, is, damn, I need a job that pays money like you make, or I need a job that pays me more money, right? Do you really need a job that's paying you more money, or do you just need to shed the fat and cut your expenses? So he always uses the example, you know, if you don't educate yourself financially, and then all of a sudden you fall into a lot of money, you're just an uneducated rich person, which what happens to them? We unfortunately see it with lotto winners. We see it with professional athletes. When all these athletes, how many athletes have you heard who were raking in the millions, you know, for those of you who know sports or whatever, you know, that we all know, raking in the millions to now all of a sudden being broke, right? They have no money because number one, they either trusted people because they didn't know what to ask and people were asking them, hey, give me this, give me that, so I can do this and I can do that. Or they just didn't, they didn't spend wisely. So if you make $1 million and you haven't curbed your expenses, guess what? You're going to spend $1 million. That's just the reality. So you need to check yourself with your ratios, and we'll explain that as to what is living within your means. So that's on the income side. So you're going to need to ask yourself that. Assets versus liabilities. So that you understand assets are things that pay you on the regular. Liabilities are things that take money out of your pocket. So right now, when you do an audit check and kind of what Danny discussed, you know, look at what's taking money out of your pocket, out of your bank account, and try to control those, right? And get through, you know, minimize the liabilities, because the liabilities are not only taking money out, they're taking interest out, and you're in the negative. So basically, they're drying you up, right? So assets versus liabilities, you want to make sure that when you do an audit of yourself, that the majority of the things that are on your balance sheet are assets because they're paying you frequently. Now, what is not an asset? And like I said, I know I'm getting a little too ahead of you guys, but you're buying a stock, let's just say hypothetically, that you buy it at $5, and then you're buying it because you hope that in 2 years, it's going to be $20. You know what? Better yet, I'm going to use a better example. You buy a house. You buy a house and everybody says buy a house because a house is a great investment, but that's a speculation because you don't know if your house is going to grow in value. That's what we perceive. We don't know, right? So that's that's just basically you're gambling with your money. Assets are something that you invest in that regularly pay you something, passive income, right? Because then basically you're doing the same old thing that you're doing. You may decide not to wake up and get to the 6:30 a.m. crew, but that passive investment is still paying you. Legacy, what are you doing this for? Are you doing this for now? Are you doing this for generational wealth? So when you see, when you hear the names, I guess you could say the Clintons, when you hear the Rockefellers, when you hear, the Resnicks, the Kennedys, these are families that are prestigious in money. Why? Because they set themselves up for generational wealth. They have their kids and they're teaching them this financial thing, something that we don't know. No, no one, the Lopez's aren't, that's not a name that has prestige, right? No one knows those names, but the reality is because there's no generational wealth there, right? We're not leaving things for our kids and our kids' kids. And it's not to just, hey, I die, my kids get everything. It's you leave it in a system where they can continue growing that money as well and leave it through their generation. So that's riches is immediate. If you get rich, that's in our lifetime. Wealth is for generation. So that's legacy. The biggest thing that you need to know is that money needs to do something. You, as he always says, you need to make money your bitch. And what does that mean? If you have, obviously the unfortunateness in our minority, places or, areas, there's always a cash checking place, right? And what happens there? The people who don't have bank accounts, they get paid and they got a nice fat packet on a Friday because they just got paid $600 and they got $600 in cash in their pocket and they're just going to spend that money, right? They're going to spend it on whatever. And the number one thing is that money needs to go somewhere. So he's going to teach you ratios. And what ratios is that you want to make sure that as soon as you get money and you can't rely on yourself because we're all emotional and we change and we have to have it automatic. So I'll just give you my example. My example is, I have 5 bank accounts. And 5 bank accounts, what he's going to teach you is that when you get paid, right, you have your main bank account that your direct deposit gets put in. But you are already automatically have automatic transfers to various accounts that he's going to teach you, right? And that's because you got to start getting in the psychological mindset to know that money needs to go to the places to work to do what they're doing, right? So he teaches 70, 10, 10, 10, which is obviously adds up to 100%. Living off of 70% of your salary, right? Setting aside 10% for giving, because that goes back with the law of promotion. We've religiously been giving. That's something that's a non-negotiable for us. And I'm going to give you a story as to why I believe it works it's so powerful, because the more you give, the more you receive. I've seen it in my life, no doubt, and I'll explain, and I'm going to give you a story after this. But I do 10% giving, then he talks about 10% a wealth account. Wealth account is like a savings account, but it's not, because a savings account, what do you do with a savings account? You put money in there, and you eventually dip into it, right? You eventually dip into it to go pay things. A wealth account is for money that you're never going to touch, that you're going to grab it and you're going to invest it, right? So that it can continue to multiply. So that's seed money. So when you're planting a seed, your goal is to create an orchard, right, of investments, so that you can go through the orchard, as we are doing now with apple picking, and grab some apples and eat them and enjoy them, but you're not killing the tree. Because once you kill the tree, there's no more apples, right? So that's why you have to look at your money, is you have to invest it so that it continues to multiply and live off of what it multiplies, right? So that money's always giving you that source, right? Now, hopefully I'm not getting over to everybody's head. 10% is for you to use towards paying off your debt, right? So that's one of the key things, because debt is going to continue bleeding. So you really want to get out of your debt as quickly as possible so that you can start being positive. Because right now, anybody who's in debt, you're negative. On a monthly basis, you are negative because that money's being taken out of you, right? As opposed to giving you money. So get out of debt first before you do the ratio. So our ratios, because we're not in debt, the only debt that we have is our mortgage, is that I go heavy we live off about 65% of our salary of what we make. And then I give 10, I invest 20 instead of 10, and then I do 5% for a fund account. So I have an account that I know that whatever is in that account, I can blow it on whatever I want. I can do whatever I want with that money. I actually have a credit card that's tied to that account that I use it when I go out, I do whatever, because I know that the money that's tied to that account is my fund money used to pay my expenses, right? The money that I live off of 65%, that money is working. Those are my monthly expenses, light bill, mortgage, whatever. I never touch that. That's strictly for my bills, right? And then I don't even think about it. Since it gets deposited into my account, it automatically goes into my giving account. So we have an account that we see growing. That's money for us to give to the causes that we like to give to, that bring meaning to our life, that we give to, right? And we never even think about it. You know, and this has nothing to do with bragging or nothing like that. Please, nothing like that. But we have no problem writing a check for $3,000 that we've accumulated in giving, because that's already the mindset that we have. 4 years ago, I'd have been, what? 4,000? Not happening. But it's because we've already psychologically separated that money so that we know each bucket has a purpose, right? So that's that. Damn, I was gonna mention something else.
The story.
Oh, the story. So giving. Why do I think giving is so powerful? You have to give, and we give, and I go back to that toxic relationship that I had with my job. That they actually did me a fortunate job. I contemplated quitting for about a year, but I didn't know where to go, and it got to a point where I was miserable, and obviously the company realized it, so they pushed me. They basically said, they did me the favor at that time. I didn't even know that they were doing me a favor. And so they let me go right around Christmas back in 2016, 15, 16, whatever. We already had gone to Danny. We had already had 16. We already had gone to Danny. We had started this journey of giving and the law of promotion. Giving is the one law. If you look it up in the Bible, it cannot be erased. If you give, you receive. It's that simple. It's in the Bible. It's not created by man. It's created in the Bible that you will be promoted more. You will be giving more. And if you are being responsible with what you have, you will get promoted to the next level, which can be, God literally says, and I'm just speaking for us, so I'm not putting religion on anybody or faith, but God says, oh, these people had $100 and they lived really good with $100. Here's $500 because you did so well with it. Just like the people, the athletes, the lotto winners who lose all their money is because they never learned the lesson, right? They never gave. So going back, we were religiously and are still religiously giving. So I get pushed. They give me like a 2-month severance. And I mean, I'm literally like ulcer down. It was the most toxic relationship that I ended up happening. It was just horrible. And I'm just like, I'm relieved. And I said to Gab, I was like, I had no idea where I was going to go next. I'm
going to take a break, he said.
I'm going to take a break. I'm going to say, we're going to take a break. I said, why don't we, because we had money saved up. I wasn't concerned with money, thankfully, because we already had started living the Danny way and the Hans Johnson. And I said, I'm no resume, didn't even have a resume made up. And I said, why don't we take a vacation? I literally want to lay in a beach somewhere for 2 weeks. I just want to chill. I want to put everything behind, come back, and then just start fresh. Let's just screw that. Let's just do that. Perfect. Let's do that. All of a sudden, boom, phone call out of nowhere. Somebody, I'm like, hey, I heard you're not with this company anymore, blah, blah, blah. I got this opening right now. And this is a company that's been hounding me for a while, but was never interested. Got this position now. And I'm like, really? And he's like, I said, when do you want to start? Like now. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, shit. And I'm like, no resume. I never made a phone call. Nothing. This person called me in the industry. And I'm like, shit, I guess I don't want to pass this up. I wasn't thinking about that. I really wanted to take a vacation, but this job is there. Basically said, what do you want to make here? You can make it. Tell me what is it going to take for you to come here? I said, okay, this is what I'm asking. Boom, start. And I started while I was still on severance with the other company. So I was making 2 salaries at one with the company. So I started working there and then working that job. I'm like, all right, do my thing. 6 months later, I'm like telling Gab, I'm like, I'm not too excited with this job, but thankfully I got a job. I don't want to sound, ungrateful. And then all of a sudden, boom, I get a phone call from some dude that I've never met in my life out of Texas, who looked me up on LinkedIn and who's basically starting up a company with a strong Texas accent. I literally thought it was I said to him, I said, stop fucking around with me. Because he said, hey, Jorge. He goes, I hear you're the man in New York City. And I'm like, who is this? And it was like, I'm in New York City and I would love to have lunch with you. Honestly thought it was a joke from one of my friends. I shit you not. And I said, I said, come on. I'm like, I wasn't born yesterday. What's going on? He's like, no, I'm serious. And ended up being some serious dude with a strong accent draw. Met him for lunch. I'm just like, just go meet him for lunch. Ended up being a 2-hour lunch. Offered me the world with this job. He said, basically, the job is yours. This is what I'm looking for. We're looking for this, blah, 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 blah. Basically a competitor to where I was at Invisalign. And spearheading New York City, killed it in New York City for about a year and a half, promoted me to like the Northeast director. Like, I mean, basically I got the position that I wanted at Invisalign that I never got. I got it here. And without really trying. And it was just like, never looking for it. It was never abnormal. It came to me. And for that blessing that I've received in my life, for me, it's absolutely because number one, I feel like we've been faithful with what we've been giving. We've been giving more than we've ever given in our life. And I can't even explain it. I have not put a resume together. I have not done anything. And I've gotten all these job offers and making a lot more money than, basically it's a mirror. I mean, for me, it's just like, whoa, I'm amazed at it. And so now I just leave everything in God's hands. I'm like, whatever. I don't force the issue. I don't whatever. And whenever I feel something's not going right, I audit myself and I check myself. Am I being faithful with this? Am I being faithful with that? Because, and then once we do, and it's even happened in her life, boom, a blessing comes out of nowhere. And I mean, we've seen it so many times. So Hans is, like I said, going back to the financial part, I think everybody should read this, have an open mind. We all need the education. He mentors me, every month. I'm in a group with him and I speak to him, one-on-one. I'm on the phone on a Zoom chat. Our calls are like 4 hours once a month. And he also does a live Facebook site. Not telling you to go to him whatsoever, but reading the book is a good first step because I think I think that as we read the book and then as you start having questions, I would love to get in there and answer a little bit more of those, but I can't stress enough how this has changed our life. I've seen it in our family. People who said in our family that had no money, that can't do such and stuff, paying off serious debt during the pandemic. 15K. She didn't mind us blasting her name, but I'll leave that up to Gab. But it was just ridiculous following this structure that is just, it's amazing. So, and I think that, I don't think that, we all have a lot of problems. I think the worst problem that we can all have are financial problems, between our spouses and between, friends and relationships like that. Cause, and just make it, I mean, that's what caused me from living or having a relationship with my sister for almost like 8 years. Like, I missed out on my nephew's childhood birth because of financial problems that her and I had, it messes you up. So that's why we have to, get our mindset in the right way, because it just allows us to be better prepared. So sorry for taking too much of your time, but I wanted to share that.
I just want to emphasize again the law of promotion, which is why I mentioned it earlier. I mean, and it's not just with money. It's with influence, with time, like I said, with relationships. It's really just being faithful with whatever it is that you have. And, and we're humans, by no means we want to come off as we got all our shit together, because we don't. But
absolutely not.
But what I can tell you is that, we keep each other accountable, because sometimes, I'm lacking somewhere and he calls me out, and sometimes he's lacking somewhere and I call him out. One of the things that, being in all the time in corporate, I've been in corporate, and I know in corporate, the life, yeah, I mean, Wendy, you just finished saying it's been such a draining week, right? And that's how it felt for me every single, day, every single week. And that's why I knew, inside of me that there had to be more, because, I just couldn't see myself working 9 to 5 every single day. So I know that Jorge is still, in that rat race, and I know that he's still in corporate. And there are days that I need to be like, he's like going off on tangents. And also, maybe a coworker is saying all these things to him because they're venting, right? And I have to check him, and I have to say, you gotta honor God, because this is where he has you, right? If he gave you this position, it's for a reason. You need to work that job like you are working for God, period. It doesn't matter. And then, and then you're right, Gab, and then he gets back on it. And if I have to call him out the next week or the next day, then that's what I'm there for. And vice versa. He has to call me out, he calls me out. So I think it's not just our money, but being faithful, in taking care of the poor, of the widow, like the Bible calls, being faithful with our influence, being faithful with whatever it is that God has given us, is why God has continued to promote us, when he has needed a job, and he's worried. And, and we always talk about this, and the Bible says it, God has the plan already. Like, we are here to serve him, right? He has a purpose for all of us. And I feel that, it's already, whatever he gives you guys, he's already solved it. He's already solved it. And so, so I think it's, reading this book, it's appropriate if you're ready to receive it. And I'm really excited to be able to do it with you guys. If you haven't ordered it, it's called True Wealth Formula by Hans Johnson. And what we'll do is, like I said, we'll read 10-15 minutes every single day, and then we'll connect on Wednesdays.
It's an easy read, definitely. And I'm not a reader. It's an easy read.
He's a funny guy too. So, we'll just connect on Wednesdays, and then we can just discuss our takeaways, right? Whatever you guys are implementing, and we can just have fun with it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys for making the group. Jorge, thank you for sharing all that info with us, your personal info. We started reading the book already, Wendy and me, and we already read like a good, I don't know, it's like 40 pages just within a short few minutes. It's a good read, and he just talking very casual to you. He's not trying to act like he's an investor. He tells you, I'm not a financial investor, a planner or anything. I'm just giving you the straight talk. So I'm really looking forward to getting more out of this between the book and between just digesting the information and then talking it over with you guys. So can't wait.
We're excited.
Yeah, I'll be happy to once you guys have questions to answer anything that, to let you guys know what I've implemented, what we've implemented in the last 3 years of me being with Hans and what I've done. But the number one thing that he teaches you, and the reason it's like True Wealth Formula, is because, the best investment that pays 100% of your money is knowing how to allocate your money and saving your money, right? So people say, oh, I don't have any money to invest, because I'm pretty sure you do. He doesn't really go into shedding the fat. That's more Danny's thing, when she talks about shed the fat and go to your cupboards and where are you spending your money and blah, blah, blah. I'll let you guys deal how you feel that fits into your life. But it all comes down to is you do have money. We all have money. It's just we don't realize how we're spending our money, and it just because a lot of it is conscience, and you actually have more money than you really think you do, right? And that's where it starts. And just being loyal with those ratios and putting the money to work right away and putting them in different buckets, you start just seeing your count. And I mean, I'm on this group with people who are just like, whoa, like that are 70 years old, and like, I wish I knew this. Like, my account now has this. I have this amount of money. I didn't know, and it's just by strictly following these ideas that make you richer, honestly. And it's not. You're going to see that he doesn't talk about how to invest in, where he shows you what you should invest in, but not what it specifically you should invest and why you should invest in certain things. But he really just talks about how to just keep your money yours as opposed to at the end of the month, here you go, here you go, here you go, here you go, because we're so in debt. You know what I mean?
So my sister's gonna come on tomorrow night, you know, and so on November 2nd, you guys, I wanna start a group where not only are we doing fitness, right, but we're also doing meditation, and obviously it's open for everyone. You're not obligated, obviously. Where we're doing the ultimate portion fix. We're gonna start with the ultimate portion fix training, and then we're gonna move on to the 2B mindset, but also implementing, you know, how to get financially fit, because like Jorge mentioned, that is actually one of the biggest problems in our households, right? And my sister's gonna talk about how she's the one who she's paid $15,000 since the pandemic. I think in like 6 months, And, you know, before it was like, I have no money. And Jorge has been talking to her about, you know, she's been to Danny with me. We've been talking to her about, you know, the ratios, and Jorge bought her the book. And then finally, you know, she was like, if this is a time where I don't have to feel like I'm missing out in life, you know, with going out with friends, etc., then this is the time I need to do it. And she's gonna, you know, share how she's done it, you know, how she feels. And I think it's just so important to fully feel, because for me, wealth is not just money. Wealth is, you know, being happy in all the areas of your life. And so I feel like if we can accomplish that, you know, with our challengers, with our coaches, then we're coaching, you know, the right way. And so I'm excited to do this, to embark in this journey with you guys. And hopefully we can get more people on board so that, you know, we're living happy and healthy all around. All right, you guys?
All right.
All right, so we'll see you guys tomorrow night at 8 p.m. if you want to jump on that. If not, we will see you on Wednesday next week at 8 p.m. All right?
Cool, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Have a blessed
Alrighty.
night, guys.
Bye.
All right. Cool.
Bye.